11 p.m. is now in order.
Item 1, consider the adoption of a resolution approving St. Martin Parish government to join the Attorney General of Louisiana as a party plaintiff in litigation against the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, the litigation challenging Risk Rating 2.0 relative to its methodology in determining flood risk and rates for flood insurance, it being understood that counsel for St. Martin Parish shall be the Attorney General for the state of Louisiana.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, you recall that last month this matter came before you. We had been contacted by the Attorney General's office requesting that we join several other parishes in the class action suit against the Federal Emergency Management Agency and others, FEMA, challenging what's called risk rating number 2, quote, equity in action. We didn't know a whole lot about that proposed litigation, and research reflected that there had been some federal legislation introduced by Senator John Kennedy to address some of the issues with this new rating program that FEMA instituted called Risk Rating 2.0. Basically, Senator Kennedy's federal legislation called for a cap on how much flood insurance could cost under the National Flood Insurance Program, and also transparency for demanding or requiring that FEMA explain why the rates, how the new rates would be determined, because nobody really could understand it. All was aware of what the metrics were that supported the risk rating 2.0. In any case, we said, look, let's just sit on this a while and see what evolves, see what additional information can be disclosed. Just so happened shortly after that, we ran across, and I think you might have been with me, Ms. LeBron, one of the aides for Senator Kennedy, and asked her about what's the status of litigation, and I got a response. What litigation? I mean, what legislation? Yeah, she wasn't aware of the bill, meaning it hadn't gotten very far in Congress. Meanwhile, 2 developments occurred. I got a call from Attorney General Landry himself about the proposed litigation, and then we talked about the proposed legislation as well. And he kind of explained some points too that they were looking at, and explained the reasons why it would be beneficial for as many parishes as possible to be part of the litigation. More importantly, though, on May 31, 2023, I had been invited to speak in New Orleans at the what's called PACE, the Parishes Against Coastal Erosion Organization, as well as the PPOL, the Parish Presidents of Louisiana. And another speaker at that conference was Solicitor General Liz Merle, who was the lead counsel for, at that time, the proposed litigation challenging risk rating 2.0. And she gave a very informative presentation. I've had the pleasure to work with her, and I know her very well, very bright lady, and she was able to give me some real deep information. But the most important data, I think, came from some of the other parish presidents that were at that meeting, and I listed them in my report. And they had actually attended the Washington Mardi Gras, and as part of their attendance, they had a meeting with the FEMA officials, and then they began to tell the horror stories about how little those officials could disclose to them as to how the rates were being set. Nobody could fully explain it. And they were seemed as though FEMA across the board, without a lot of factual basis, were basing rates on a 1,000-year flood event, which is not a good thing, especially in the coastal area. Plus, all the coastal mitigation and flood mitigation work that has been done in our areas, and in Louisiana were not even being considered to mitigate against the rates, the higher rates. And that was very objectionable to them. And bottom line is that under the estimations or the predictions as to what could occur if these rates kept increasing was that you would have about an 18% increase every year, and the byproduct of that was that people couldn't afford it. And remember, this is, we're talking now about the National Flood Insurance Program, a federally funded program. And so a program designed to help people is actually now under this risk rating 2.0, driving them out of the market because they simply couldn't afford it. And that was the object of the litigation. It was filed the very next day, on June 1. What the suit attempts to do is to put an injunction on the implementation of the rates associated with risk rating 2.0 and to keep in place the current rating system until some of these issues that I just alluded to very vaguely have been resolved. According to the suit itself, there's 43 other parishes that did in fact join the suit, as well as 12 levy districts, and I want to say 9 states joined Louisiana in the litigation as well. So after having had the benefit of those personal meetings, that personal discourse, I really think it would be in order for St. Martin Parish to join as a plaintiff in this litigation. It's not too late because you can always add parties, but I think it would be a good show and demonstration of the seriousness we take our National Flood Insurance Program. And it is important to our people because there's a lot of areas in St. Martin Parish that are in flood zones as defined by FEMA. Which means you qualify for insurance through the NFI, the National Flood Insurance Program. It is not litigation which seeks money. It's litigation which seeks to bring back to the table the what they call the legacy rating, the pre-risk rating 2.0 system until these issues can be resolved. And again, I think it's a good thing. I wasn't convinced a month ago, I am now. And I can answer whatever questions or try to answer whatever you might have. It's a pretty complex metrics that's utilized. And I think that's the problem. Nobody can really explain it, and nobody can really understand it.
And
Item 2, consider the adoption of a resolution authorizing the filing of an application to the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development for a grant under 49 CFR 5311 formula grant for rural areas.
this is something we do annually.
Item 3, as recommended by BCIS, consider the introduction and or adoption of an ordinance increasing the size of an accessory building in areas of special flood hazard.
President Sears?
Yeah, this is kind of related to what we talked about earlier. To be a member of the National Flood Insurance Program, the parish, a local authority, has to have floodplain ordinances. And we have a floodplain ordinance that comports with the minimum. In fact, it exceeds some of the minimum FEMA requirements. One of the requirements is that if there's an accessory building, it has to be of certain size. Under our floodplain ordinance, we provide that an accessory building in a special flood zone area can't be greater than 500 square feet. And in my report, I copied the email that I received from BCIS saying, hey, that's a problem because your accessory buildings are too small. And usually the accessory building, particularly for areas in special flood zones, will house vehicles, boats, for some of them coastal areas. And BCIS thought that we needed to increase that because it was very difficult for them. They weren't able to legally approve larger accessory buildings. and they have recommended 1,500 would be a good size accessory building. It does not offend any FEMA precepts. And again, this comes through the recommendation of BCIS.
That would be the maximum size?
Pardon?
1,500 would be the maximum?
Yes, of the accessory building. Your own structure can be larger, of course, if you meet all the other FEMA regulations.
Why we interested in restricting it to that? Restricting it?
I can't answer that. I can ask BCIS, but actually, Ms. Darby, our floodplain administrator with BCIS, was suggesting 1,000. Mr. Richard said no, 1,500 is the kind of the mark, the benchmark, and he suggested 1,500. And according to them, they don't really get requests that frequently to approve accessory buildings larger than that.
I mean, I know several people that have 30 by, at least 40 by 60 building or 30 by 50, so.
But this is only a flood.
But are they
Yeah, I mean,
in a special flood zone?
Yeah, but I mean, if somebody wants a 40 by 60, that's 2,400 square feet.
That might be an issue under the FEMA regulations too, if it's in a special flood zone hazard area. And you know, I don't want to pick on them, I always think Lower St. Martin. That's where a lot of your accessory buildings are situated. And you know that's a special flood zone.
Around here, a lot of people that have outdoor kitchens, these shop houses. I know most of them are not bigger than 1,500 square foot.
Are they a special flood zone?
Some are more.
There might be a problem getting flood insurance and getting approved for flood insurance.
Yeah.
Put that on the table.
Thank you.
Item 4, discussion of ordinance summary number 1401 OR, an ordinance to amend and/or revise section 1 of Article 2 of the St. Martin Parish zoning ordinance relative to the definition of home occupation and to provide for all other matters associated therewith.
President Sears?
Yeah, this is pretty self-explanatory. I referenced it in my report. Essentially, I thought it would be a good idea in this day and age to extend the definition of home occupation to the extent that it was not covered under our old 95 ordinance, that would embrace activities that are conducted remotely, remote sales, remote transactions, and/or when service industries, you have a lot of contractors who work out of their home, but there's nothing on site other than maybe their tools in a shed or their trailer that they pull. And if you look at those type of industries, they're not covered really under the home accessory definition under the 1995 version. So by adding that proposed paragraph, that would expand it to include those type of entities. It doesn't embrace any on-site activity, any customers coming on site. It doesn't address any of that. It's the storage of your tools of your trade, so to speak, taking phone orders. Hey, I need you to come repair my cabinet, or lawn care. Another good example I think about. So, I just thought it would be a good idea to expand this, because we've had some issues in the permit area with people not fitting the home occupation definition and having to actually go through a convoluted process of a zoning change or a board of adjustment action.
No question. Thank you.
Item 5, consider appointments, reappointments to various committees. Item 6, Parish President's Report.
President Sears?
I will be very brief for reasons which you pointed out to me, Mr. Lawrence. We got a visitor, and I don't think he's coming our way, but just it's that time of year, and just want to remind you that our tropical storm Brett is tracking in the Atlantic, so just something to keep an eye on. I talked to Terry Guidry this morning, bothered him again. I generally get nervous after 2019 and 2020, so I had him on the phone this morning. He said that, you know, of course, Homeland Security is keeping a close eye on it. So, and we will continue to monitor that. Nothing to worry about. I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but again, it's that time of year, so please stay vigilant. We'll also point out that mosquito surveillance program, I talked about it a little bit in my report, that it's just, you know, just that time of year for mosquitoes as well, so those precautions, and I'm going to publish the report, of course, reminding people of the nature of our program. It's a surveillance program, it's not a mitigation program, but again, it's just alerting people what measures should be adopted to protect themselves from mosquito infestation. On pages, beginning on page 9 of my report, I talk about the 2023 Capital Outlay Awards and direct appropriations. At the time I prepared the report, the direct appropriation bill had been signed by the governor. Some items had been vetoed, but they hadn't been published yet. It was published yesterday morning. None of the awards in favor of any entity in St. Martin Parish was affected from what I pointed out in my report. So I'm pleased with what St. Martin Parish received, both capital outlay, and very pleased with what we received from direct appropriation. The direct appropriation is now not a House bill, it's an act. It's Act 375. Beyond that, I really don't have anything to report other than what I've already indicated to you in my report, except one more thing. The home elevation program, we will again sponsor that. Mr. Gary O'Neill will be at your July meeting, July 18th committee meeting, and he will explain this year's home elevation program and awards, and we will probably have the same type of format as we did last year, where we go out to the communities, 2 or 3 places, and try to solicit participants for the home elevation program, or solicit their applications. Beyond that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you. Any update on the Ornerville Pavilion, the sidewalks and the kiosks?
No, I think we're pretty close to completing.
Yeah, we're in the process of doing the landscaping as far as the sidewalk. We're gonna have to reconfigure the direction it's gonna go because of ADA.
Okay, I got a call from Miss Patty Holland, as project people, you know, they're getting excited to use the facility.
We, Mr. Duro, on my request, prepared and submitted to me, I've not yet reviewed it, a proposed cooperative endeavor agreement with the town of Warrenville, who will be administering the facility for us.
People pass, you know, and they see it, it's brand new, it's shiny, and they want to start using it.
Interesting, Mr. Richard, I got a call from an individual, who said, hey man, I like a lot. That's part of my bike route. And yes, sir, he said, yeah, I stopped over there and just walked in that pavilion, man, that's real nice. But I got a question for you. I said, what's that? He said, you know, I got a little shop in my house, and boy, I love those fans they got there. So who made the fans, you know? And the brand I thought was Big Ass Fans. That's the name of the company, what they are. But anyway, he's right, it's attracting a lot of interest.
Item 7, reports. Statements of revenues and expenditures and balance sheet for May 2023 were submitted.
All right, just a reminder, I think our July meeting on Wednesday, July the 5th, not Tuesday, July the 4th. That said, this meeting is adjourned.